right, as the Spirit leads me. I don't know if you heard the story. There was a Baptist pastor who got invited to preach at the Presbyterian church. So he comes and he asks the Presbyterian minister, how long is the sermon? It's 20 minutes. He said, 20 minutes, that's it. So the Baptist pastor came up to the pulpit, he took his watch off and put it down, and he said, do you know what that means? Absolutely nothing. So, like I'm sure many of you, I travel a lot. I mean, my job entails a lot of travel, and so we're based in Europe as a company, and I'm going from Europe to the U.S., all over the U.S., South America. And so I never know what time zone I'm in. I don't sleep particularly well in planes and hotels. So I'll do this for 4, 5, 6 weeks, and eventually it catches up with me, and I'm home. It's Friday night, and at 8 o'clock, I'm just out. It's like deep, deep sleep, and get into that really deep REM sleep where you have the intense dreams. So this was happening to me the other night, and so in the dream, I've died, and I'm waiting in line at the pearly gates. And right in front of me is this guy. He's got kind of a loud shirt on, blue jeans, flip-flops, and sunglasses. And so Peter walks up to him and says, who are you? He says, my name's Sam Cohen. I was a taxi driver in New York City. So Peter gets his book out, comes down to his name, and hands him a golden staff and a silk robe. Says, welcome to heaven. And he goes off. So then Peter came to me and he said, who are you? And I said, I'm Kevin Humphreys. I worked in the maritime industry. I was a frequent public speaker, but I also taught Christian worldview studies and theology on the weekends. So he looked through his book, came down to my name, and he handed me a wooden staff and a cotton robe. And I said, Peter, hopefully not. I mean, he gets a gold staff and a silk robe, and I get a wooden staff and a cotton robe. And Peter said, you see, Kevin, up here we work by results. When you spoke or taught, people slept. When he drove a taxi, people prayed. So, hopefully, I don't have that much time together. Hopefully, I won't put anyone to sleep. I had a great time last night. I'm really glad I came. I was talking to Mark from Port Canaveral last night. Oh, there. Okay. So poor Mark doesn't know my background, and so we're talking. He's telling me all about his ministry, and people come to Jesus, and he's going on mission trips to Indonesia, and people from Muslim background come to know the gospel, and it's going on. We're on the bus now on the way home. And I teased him a little bit, so I have to ask for his forgiveness. But I said, Mark, I'm a sales exec with a manufacturing company. You're kind of assumed I have any clue what you're talking about. And his face kind of dropped. He's like, I'm really sorry. And then I grabbed his arm and I said, no, I do know what you're talking about. And I think almost a better name for this presentation is a Christian's perspective inside of an OEM in the industry. I think you'll get that sense of it. But I was making an assumption too, and I'm really glad I went to the dinner because usually when I go to speak at conferences, it tends to be technical audiences, or it tends to be business audiences, and they know who Wärtsilä is, and we're a relatively well-known company in the industry. But I realized last night, Alicia's not in her head, like, who are you? What does Wärtsilä do, and why are you here? So let me tell you a little bit about Wärtsilä as a company. We're one of the largest manufacturers in the maritime industry. We make all the stuff that goes inside a vessel that makes it run. The engines, the propulsion systems, the bridge consoles, data systems, quite a few things. Even my great customers don't know all the things we do. We're such a big company. We did about $5 billion euros in revenue last year. We have approximately 18,000 employees, over 200 locations in 70 countries around the world. We're a publicly traded company on the NASDAQ Helsinki exchange. And we're divided into 3 main business groups: marine solutions, energy solutions, and services. So in the marine solutions world, this would be our new building, new construction division. So we sell equipment into new vessel construction. Engines, generating sets, reduction gears, propulsion equipment, sealing equipment, bridge consoles. We actually do entertainment integration systems on cruise vessels and, oddly enough, amusement parks. We have a group that does that. So we're on, it used to be about a third of global vessels had Wärtsilä equipment. Via acquisition, we're probably up to 40+%. So our equipment is on a huge number of vessels out there, which means we have thousands and thousands of service personnel out in the industry every single day, working on vessels, working in power plants, in this sort of dangerous industrial environment that the maritime industry is. The second division we have is the power plant, the energy solutions division. the same type of engine that runs a ship. And any of you are familiar with a cruise vessel. A cruise vessel is really a floating power plant. So those engines are on land-based power plants as well. We build and construct land-based power plants. And then our last division is our services division, our biggest division. And this is the group that does all the field service, the parts, the labor for servicing this equipment out in the field. And this is about, out of that 18,000 people, this is almost 11,000, this group. And these are the people that are out in the field all the time and have the most interaction with the vessels that you're interacting with in the industry. And the people that you may very well run into on your ship visits. About any given day, about 5,000 people in the field working for Wärtsilä. So that's my setup for. So that's my setup. So as I was thinking about this, what is our perspective as a manufacturer in this global industry? To give it some context, I was thinking about the book of Galatians as a way to put some context around this. And just to summarize, we know in Galatians, Paul's got this issue in the church in Galatia, so he spends 2 chapters laying out his authority as an apostle to speak on for the church. In chapters 3 and 4, he lays out his arguments, his soteriological arguments on justification and sanctification, and how do Jews and Gentiles live together under Christ in chapters 3 and 4. And then 5 and 6 is what I'm going to draw out. He lays out this pastoral message to the church in Galatians, and he says, look, in light of this existential experience you had with the Spirit, there's behavior change that takes place. You begin to pursue the things of the Spirit, but there's a problem. You have a heart problem in the middle of this, and you're never going to get the heart change until your identity changes. It goes on at the end of chapter 6. Until your identity change by boasting in the cross. So we have a behavior change that needs to take place. Why? We have a heart problem, but you've got to change your identity in boasting in the cross. And the heart problem is at the center of it. So the question is, what is this heart problem that Paul's getting to? And he tells us in chapter 5, verse 26. He says simply, do not become conceited, quarrelsome with one another, or envious of one another. So what does Paul mean here? Well, this word conceited, kenodoxos, literally means vainglorious, without glory, empty of honor. So the question is, what's Paul getting at here? And I think we're all familiar with Pascal's God-shaped hole in the heart. I think probably some of you cut your teeth on F.F. Bruce and more recently I think Tim Keller have kind of worked through this in a way that I think is very, very illuminating. But if you read Romans 1 and 2, you see that we are designed by our Creator to get affirmation and recognition from Him. That's our very design nature. We're designed every single minute of every day to be glorifying Him and hearing, well done, good and faithful servant. That's our design purpose. That's the way we're meant to be. And unfortunately, as a result of sin, it enters in and then we have a problem. And then Paul goes on to explain what this is. He says, don't be quarrelsome or envious of one another. So he lays out 2 sides of the same coin that says, you're not looking to God for your affirmation and recognition. You are looking to man. You are either quarrelsome or superior or competitive with. You're either looking to feel better about yourself or feel superior to others, and so that you feel self-justified. Or the other side of the same coin, you're looking at others saying, I don't feel good, I'm not getting my value from God. Instead, what's happening is I'm looking to someone else being envious of what they have. Same side, or 2 sides of the same coin, and if we're honest, we tend to vacillate between those 2 things. So we've got this problem that we look at man for our affirmation and recognition. So what is the result? And I really like how Tim Keller pulls this out. What happens is our human relationships become market-based. Our human relationships become, what does being in a relationship with this person benefit me? Does it make me feel superior, or do I come into it feeling envious of this person? This is how our human relations come. And so the opportunity for exploitation of relationships then is wide open, which is not our design purpose. So this is at the heart issue, is our relationships with one another as human beings as we go out into the world. And so the question is, once this change starts taking place, once the behavior change takes place and pursuing the things of the Spirit, because I've changed my identity and boasting in the cross, what's one of the first signs that we see? And Paul tells us right at the beginning of chapter 6, he says, you should bear one another's burdens. This is one of the outworkings then of the Spirit. And the word for burden here he uses is like a soldier's pack, a weight on the back. And so necessarily, if I'm to take a burden and someone's coming along with a 100-pound burden, got to pick it up, and that means I've got a 50-pound burden. The necessary outworking is I'm putting a burden on myself in a certain way. It's the only way it works. So we can't be compassionate in our ministry lives or in our business lives if we are merely either saying there's a situation that's morally wrong, and I stop there, because then I'm just moralizing. Right? They don't think God's interested in that. On the other hand, if I'm merely in fixing problems, not dealing with the underlying moral condition, I'm just fixing things. I'm fixing a condition. I'm not really getting to the root of it. And so I think the compassion calls us to identify things that are immoral, situations that are immoral, problems in our relationships that are broken, and then we should be moved to the depth of our being to do something about it. This is real compassion, and this is what Paul's talking about. In other words, we're going to give something up in order to do what is morally right by, in Paul's case, brother and sister in Christ, but I'm going to pull this in how we apply this and I see it being applied in the business world. And so, as I look at Wärtsilä, how does Wärtsilä play this out? I think in three main areas that we as a company try to operate. Number one, economic responsibility. Number two, environmental responsibility. And number three, social responsibility. So in economic responsibility, in the business world, so we get out of exploitative relationships, and how does this transaction merely benefit me and profit? We want to be always looking for relationships that benefit both parties. This is an outworking of this, that we're not manipulating or abusing people, but we're providing value to both sides. And so we try to achieve what our customers expect and how to make them profitable and how to make them valuable companies. And so we do that by providing high-quality equipment and environmentally sound products. And so as we go about this, we're building long-term partnerships with companies, relationships with companies. We're offering good compensation to our employees, good working conditions, and benefiting and offering help to the local communities in which we operate. Second thing is environmental responsibility, and we look at this in two ways: product performance and operational performance. As far as product performance goes, we want to create products that are environmentally sound and protect the environment. And my primary role is actually in our environmental groups. We help companies get into compliance with environmental regulations. So we're looking at long-term reliability, safe operation equipment, and long life at sea. Solutions that reduce fuel consumption and all the associated pollutants that come from fuel consumption. If you don't burn it, you don't need to treat it. Flexibility in fuel use, using fuel sources that pollute the environment less. Other solutions to lower my overall operating effect on the environment. We need commerce. We need what we do in shipping. It's critical, it's crucial. Without shipping tomorrow, literally millions of people die. I mean, we live in a just-in-time world and economy where healthcare and things we need to stay alive are delivered. We need to do that, but we need to do it in a way that respects the environment. We also operate in the world of vessel design, so we're constantly looking for new ways to design vessels that are more efficient. We can deliver more cargo at less environmental costs, less fuel consumption. And the second thing is operational performance. In developing our operations and processes, we try to use the latest technology so that we have the lowest impact, and that we enable to use technology to make life for the mariner at sea who's using our equipment, or for the technicians that are out, as easy as possible, with the least amount of waste and emissions in the manufacturing process. The third piece we look at is our social responsibility, and there's 5 things as a company that we do. Number one, our employee practices, how we treat our employees. Number two, our view of human and labor rights. 3, how we view our suppliers as a large buyer of ourselves, how we view our local communities, and our practices of preventing corruption and bribery. So for employee practices, we strive to have a workplace that is fair, that has no harassment, that has fair remuneration. In general, our temporary and part-time employees are offered the same benefits as permanent employees. I think there's some interns in the room that probably think, I want to go work for Wärtsilä now. And we have many ways inside a large global company that we communicate with one another to create transparency and openness on what's going on in the company. When you think about 18,000 people, if you had a town of 18,000, that's tough enough to communicate with, but now you get 18,000 people all over the world. So we have various mechanisms, primarily leveraging technologies of various sorts to enable us to communicate openly and transparently within the company. The second piece of the puzzle is human and labor rights, where we try to abide by the 10 principles of the UN Global Compact, 6 of which are related to human and labor rights. We have currently 131 nationalities working for Wärtsilä, and we support the International Labor Organization's right to organize for employees. And if employees in our country that don't have the right to organize, we try to create at least internal mechanisms that they can join together and have a voice at We don't want employees to feel they can't express their opinions about their labor conditions. We absolutely do not accept, either with ourselves or any of our suppliers, child or forced labor whatsoever. And if we're aware of any cases of that, we immediately report it to authorities. The next piece of the puzzle is our suppliers. And we have a very particular process of choosing suppliers to ensure that they are abiding by the values that we hold as a company. These partners are audited, these suppliers are audited for their business practices, their labor practices, their human rights practices. And we try to keep that same sort of open, transparent dialogue and bring them eventually on to a partnership world so that they see that these kinds of values as a company provide them long-term benefit as well. We also, with our research and development activities, we're very active with universities and small startups, doing things that we as a company may not even be focused on. We're looking for the next thing and new ways of doing things by investing in R&D in those areas. So we have collaborations with universities, research institutes, and other key suppliers. So we strive that these suppliers follow the same kind of social responsibilities that we follow as a company, so that we're not just creating sort of a wall. We want them to be partners with us in what we think is important. And we audit them to make sure they're keeping up with performance indicators along the way. The next piece of the puzzle is how we work with communities that we operate in. Again, we operate all over the world, and when we're operating in countries, we abide by the laws of that country. We pay our taxes and whatever social dues we have to. We try to provide education and training to employees, regardless of which country they're coming from, inside Wärtsilä. And we try to bring in local stakeholders, local governments, local schools into things we're doing as a company to engage with them. Our guiding principle, the Wärtsilä Code of Conduct, is to promote openness and good interaction with its stakeholders locally and globally. And this applies not only to our employees immediately, but to employees' families, their spouses, their children, education institutes, and the local community around where we operate. We do things like open door days, where we'll literally just open our doors and invite schools in, kids in, the community in, local public officials in, so they can see the kind of operations we do. It's a very foreign thing to most people, the shipping industry broadly, which I think you can appreciate, but the manufacturing world particularly is very particular, it's very unique. And I've been a few times, I've been in our factory where we brought schools in or universities in, and sometimes these are your kids interested in STEM programs later on if they're younger, or maybe university students, and to see their eyes kind of get big. And I'm an engineer by training, and so even I think it's still cool. They make these really big engines on these massive assembly lines. It's really kind of joyful to see their eyes open. This is the practical outworkings of all that math and science that you're either thinking about studying or are currently studying. The last piece of the puzzle is our preventing corruption and bribery. I mean, one of the biggest reasons we have poverty in the world in so many places is because the lack of rule of law and corruption and bribery is too widespread. And so our code of conduct absolutely forbids any type of corruption or bribery. It has to be reported. We have a very, very bright line on this, both for us and any of our suppliers. There's nothing more corrosive to a culture than bribery and corruption. It perpetuates poverty, and it's something we take a very strong line on. And so any even hints of that, we encourage reporting and notify the proper authorities. Every employee is in training in anti-corruption practices to ensure that they're aware of what it is and how to report it. It's a mandatory thing that every employee is trained and knowledgeable in recognizing it. Now, at this point, you may be saying, "Oh, Kevin, this is great, but Wärtsilä is a secular company." And maybe you're drawing an unfair connection between what Paul was saying and bearing this burden of giving something up to others in order to share mercy and grace in a biblical sense. Well, now you're connecting into the business world. And so to that I would say three things. Number one, if these values that we have as a company, and granted, I'm speculating, but our CEO wouldn't be up here giving the kind of talk that I'm giving right now. But the bottom line is this: these values that we have that value human beings, ultimately for their very nature, for the fact that they are unique creations of God and they have the imago Dei in them, those values that stem from that ultimately have no grounding if I'm a businessman and I merely say they're good values. I mean, if I'm a businessman and I say these are good values and this is great and this is how we do business, if I start asking the why question, ultimately it falls to human-based values and how to do business. And you're standing on sinking sand when you do that. Ultimately, if these values are true, real, moral, and transcendent, they must come from a transcendent moral lawgiver. It's the only sustainable position to have, to understand where these moral values come from. It's a fatal flaw of a humanistic worldview that we can go from a materialistic is of reality into the way things ought to be. It's a very, very difficult problem for that worldview, and I think it's a fatal problem for that worldview. So I believe these views are an expression of transcendent moral values. The only place they can come from ultimately is a transcendent moral value giver. The second piece of the puzzle is, as Christians, we need to be out in the workplace. You guys do great work, and what you do is really important. But a lot of Christians don't understand that we need to be out doing our vocations. And if my Catholic friends will forgive me, I'm going to paraphrase Martin Luther. I mean, Martin Luther said, look, it doesn't matter whether you're a prince or a shoemaker. That's not the issue. The issue is if you're a shoemaker, make great shoes and make them to the glory of God. That's what's important. And so too many Christians don't understand that we need to be out in the economy, out in private companies, expressing these values. The history on this, as far as Western civilization, is crystal clear. Every time Christianity comes into a community, a culture, a city, a town, a university, a leadership area, once they start getting around 10% of the population, they have a dramatic effect on the culture. Hospitals come in, schools come in, arts comes in, literature comes in, human rights comes in, a uniquely Judeo-Christian concept. So Christians need to be in the workplace, understanding those values and forwarding them from them, so that every day their work, my work at Wärtsilä or whatever someone's doing, is done to the glory of God. And you know, this is a really crucial concept for the life of a Christian out in the economy, but so often it's missed. And if any of you are involved in academia and Christian schools, whatever, just ask the question of your classes. Adult Sunday schools, it doesn't really matter. What part of last week was spiritual for you? And they're going to start calculating, you know, I read the Bible Tuesday morning, I went to youth group, and said grace before dinner, and 10%. 10%. Well, the reality is, for a Christian, the answer is always 100%. Every minute of every day is a spiritual experience, living with God, living out our work that we've been given to do. My vocation is sales and business development. Your vocation is ministry. But either way, we're to do it to the glory of God every single day. And the last thing I would say about this is, ultimately, this only goes so far. The corporate world only goes so far. We do operate in a secular world, so we need organizations like yours. We need people who are going out into the dark places that are getting missed. We need people going out, establishing that human contact with people that don't necessarily have it. Not every company, and we know this, operates with the ethical standards of Wärtsilä in this industry. Unfortunately, there are unscrupulous vessel owners that put our mariners in great danger of unsafe conditions. There's vessel owners that don't pay mariners a fair wage, and this is where you all come in. And so, although as a Christian applying these values and trying to live this out in the corporate secular world is important and crucial, what you do is also really, really crucial. And I just want to say that we appreciate it. We're very honored to be here today, and we appreciate being able to support you. And I think we're going to go to some questions now. Thank you very much.